Recording this session right now. I want to start out today's session by introducing how you can go and enroll for these Success Meetup webinars if this is maybe your first time joining and you're not sure how to join more. Additionally, I want to share out where it is that we post these recordings and share out a handy guide for today's topic to give you some more information to go off of after today's session has concluded. So first of all, let me go ahead and show you within kvCORE a couple of important resources that I feel like everyone should know. I know some of you joined here today. This might not be your first Success Meetup, so I apologize that we're repeating information that some of you already know. Just want to make sure everybody's starting out from the same spot. So I highly recommend, if you haven't already explored our training calendar, to check here for webinars. We typically host webinars Monday through Friday each week. I do want to mention 4th of July is coming up shortly. That Tuesday, there are no webinars just because of the holiday. But typically we teach these Success Meetups every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You'll see them on the calendar. We usually try, twice weekly to have, some more general topics. And then one session tends to be a little bit more advanced. Additionally, as well, something else that I'll put on your radar, this Thursday's Success Meetup, I believe, was also canceled as kvCORE is having their spring summer release webinar at that same time. So just something to note about this Thursday's Success Meetup. But tips, tricks, and Q&A, that's what we cover. The topics always vary. It is also open Q&A, so you're welcome to chime in at any time if you have questions about kvCORE. Pop those in the chat or the Q&A. I will mention I tend to notice the chat before the Q&A, but I'll try to make sure I'm checking both. We'll try to either incorporate them into today's topic, or if they're unrelated, I'll try to save some time at the end for just your specific questions about your platform. So don't be shy. Feel free to chime in if you've got questions you want answered. Now that's where you go to enroll for these sessions. You can enroll for one, you can enroll for several. Additionally, we like to try to make a habit of posting through our Inside Real Estate Facebook group the upcoming topics. We often post a lot of our recordings here, not every single one. If you want to catch every single Success Meetup recording, you'll definitely want to head over to our YouTube channel. And I'll share these out. I think I have included them in my guide, but why not? I'll share them out in the chat too. But the YouTube channel, I always like to point out users, the playlist page is where you're going to find that Success Meetup playlist with over 115 videos now in that playlist. And then if you're a beginner of kvCORE, I'd like to also point out here, Mastering kvCORE Tools for Success. That's a great playlist to check out. Just full dedicated videos on individual tools of the platform. So popping in the chat, the YouTube channel, specifically the playlist page, and the Facebook group is just a great place to synergize with other kvCORE users. There is an announcement about that spring summer release here. And you'll often see, if you look at our images, we often try to post what the upcoming topics will be for the week. So just sharing that on my screen as well from the Facebook group. Today is about adding phone contacts. Tomorrow is texting strategies to start conversations with your database. And Thursday is canceled because we're having that spring release webinar. All right. Oh, and just saw a message in the chat. Import contacts. Also, when importing contacts, can they have more than one contact number or email? Example, if a husband and wife are on the deed, then I would have both their numbers and emails. Absolutely, Charles. And I'll make sure to incorporate that in today's topic, just to give you a little bit more insight into what can be imported with your database. Thanks for hanging out, guys, while I did the kind of introduction. Now let's talk about adding phone contacts to kvCORE. Now, just to give you some context here, if I haven't introduced myself already, my name is Mariel Ortiz. I'm a product trainer here with Inside Real Estate. Teach a lot of our How It Works webinars, build your pipelines, a lot of our orientations, and a lot of our Tuesday Success Meetup sessions. Last week we met together and I talked a little bit about holiday posting for 4th of July. But other than last week's session, most of these Tuesdays, we've been doing kind of a series of importing contacts. So I did a webinar recently on the differences between importing your own contacts rather than letting our team of specialists handle it. I'll also incorporate some of what we talked about in today's conversation. And then I believe the following week, we talked a little bit about adding email contacts. So feel free to reference that video for more context there. And today we're talking about adding phone contacts specifically. So if you have an iPhone or Android, we'll kind of talk about those processes. And then of course, we'll try to bring it all the way through, not just how to grab those contacts, but also how to prep your list and talk a little bit about that import process as well. If you've ever been to one of my success meetups, you might be aware that I usually like to create a handy guide for you all that I share out in the chat. So let me share that out now. Here is, or let me just go ahead and grab that share link for you all, copy that link. And here is the guide going down in the chat. For those of you catching the recording, I'm going to try to make sure I go back to our Facebook group, post the guide if it's posted there. Same thing with the YouTube channel. I'll try to pop that guide in there in the chat for you guys. But on this guide, a couple things I want to address. So talking about exporting contacts from your Android or iPhone. Now, a lot of people, I think, overlook their, say, sphere of influence contacts, friends, family members, past coworkers, neighbors, the people that you aren't quite sure if they're interested in real estate or not. But it's a good idea to make sure that we're tapping into all the resources we have, all the people that we know, because even if they're not looking to buy or sell a home, these are great, potential resources for referrals. So we want to make sure that everyone knows what we've got going on. And there is ways to nurture your regular, say, sphere of influence contacts, those that don't want real estate information sent their way. You could still nurture them through kvCORE by maybe, directing them to blog posts on your website. That's easy, free to do. Same thing with building a monthly newsletter, or if you want to build holiday emails to send out to them. Great ways to, keep everyone engaged and just occasionally remind them, hey, anybody, I work in real estate. So definitely think it's worthwhile bringing them in. Now, to grab those phone contacts, I'm going to probably more detailed, give a more detailed example of how to export iPhone contacts, because my Android users out there, this is actually usually a little bit simpler for you. As Android contacts, in most situations, you can just back those Android contacts up to your Google account, whatever Google account you have associated with your phone. And then from there, it's actually really easy to export contacts from Google. We did talk about that last week when we talked about exporting email contacts, but I have included links here to, I want to mention these aren't kvCORE guides. These are guides I found online, but I did include a guide to backing up Android contacts to Google and how to export contacts from Gmail. So very simple to do. Additionally, we have a YouTube video about bringing in email contacts. I think I actually even linked that. Yep, I linked that down here as well at the bottom of my guide. So my Android users, it's definitely going to be a little bit simpler if you want to bring in those Android contacts. And I definitely recommend, referencing that video. Now, my iPhone users, I want you guys to relax. It's not too hard to bring those contacts in, but there's an extra step or two that's involved. And I want to mention, the way I'm going to talk about it today is not the only way to do it. I know most users might do a Google search, how to export from source XYZ, whatever your lead source is. And there's other ways to do it. A lot of these will also say, hey, if you download this app, we'll move over your contacts for you. The method I'm going to talk about today, there's no apps involved. There's no charge. It's free to do. And I'll try to make that process pretty easy for you guys. I will mention I won't be able to demonstrate every single step along the way, because this session is recorded, it will get added to YouTube, and we don't want to get, in trouble from YouTube by sharing, real contact information. So do be aware, anything that I show here today, these are not real leads, not real contacts. I don't want to be showing anyone's real information for today's purposes. What we'll do is we'll get as close as we can to the real process. All right, so let's start there with grabbing our file contacts. Then we'll talk about what can be brought over to kvCORE, and this will apply to users, even the users that have contacts to bring in that maybe aren't from their iPhone or Android. And then we'll talk about bringing it into kvCORE itself. Okay, so for my iPhone users, I highly recommend, I'm a big fan of this iCloud method where you back up your contacts to iCloud, export them from there. I will mention when you initially export contacts from iCloud, it does save to your computer as what's called a vCard. And the vCard as it is cannot be used vCard cannot be used in this case. So for importing directly into kvCORE, there is another step to that process. So just something to mention there. I have included this guide here. It is not directly affiliated with kvCORE, and it's a little outdated, but it's pretty straightforward. It talks you through each step of the process. And the very first step in the process is you want to back up your contacts to iCloud. Now, usually when you pull up your phone in your settings, there is options to back up to iCloud. That's something that's automatically in there. And once they're in your iCloud, you're going to want to log in on your computer, and you're going to want to head over to your contacts in iCloud. Now, this is the part I'm not going to actually show my contacts here, just so as not to show anyone's information. When you go to click there, it's going to lead you to a screen with all of your contacts. You'll want to make sure you're selecting all of them, and then you export vCard. So it's really just two steps there. There's going to be a little gear icon in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen on your contacts page, and that's where you can go to make both selections. And of course, that guide that I have linked will walk you through that process. Now, when you do that, it's going to download what I mentioned is a vCard to your computer. And we're half of the way there. Once you have that vCard, we just want to convert it to what's called a CSV. That's what kvCORE can read when it comes to your files. CSV is always what we recommend for any version of file that you're importing in. So to take it the rest of the way to a vCard, there is a link in there to what's called a CSV converter in my guide here and in the other guide that I have linked there. Really, all you're doing is you're choosing your vCard, you're attaching it to this converter. You're going to choose CSV, choose comma in the box just to the right of it, and check the box that says add header line. Very important. We want our headers to transfer over. We want to know for each call of information in that file, what is included there. Is it an email address? Is it a cell phone number, etc. So we're really just choosing kind of three buttons there, attaching our file, and we can click convert. And I'll make this just a little bit larger for my screen. I know I'm going through a tiny bit quickly here today, but keep in mind you'll have access to this recording both on YouTube, both in the guide. So you can always refer back, watch this at your own pace if you're doing this later. Now, after we've gotten this selected, we're going to click this convert button here, and it's just going to go ahead and take that vCard, and it's going to download a CSV to my computer. Now, I don't want to show off, again, anyone's contact information, so I do have a blank version of an iCloud export. So there's no actual contacts in here, but if you're curious, I can go ahead and I can share this out in the chat. Copy that link. This file here shows you all the information that would export with your iCloud contacts. So we got their name, if you have multiple addresses, multiple phone numbers, home addresses, business address, if you've entered information about their job title, department, organization, notes, birthdays. So a pretty long list here of different categories that do export with your iPhone contacts. Now, at this point, once you have your file of contacts, you're definitely going to want to put in some prep work before importing them into kvCORE, whether you're going to do that whole import yourself or whether you're sending it over to our team. So with that prep work, couple pieces of information we recommend checking, couple of pieces of information I recommend adding to your file or to your spreadsheet. So first of all, we definitely recommend whenever possible with kvCORE, when you're bringing in your contacts, try to make sure they have a first and last name here. Try to make sure you have an email address for them. And if possible, we recommend a cell phone number. Now, that doesn't mean they can't be imported with those, but definitely email or having full name is going to make it more easily searchable in your CRM. Additionally, having a full name is helpful if you're using automation or if you're using the pre-created email or text templates in kvCORE, as a lot of that messaging inserts their name into the message, and it's only going to work properly if we have their names. Additionally, email and cell phone is helpful, so we can send those mass text messages and emails. And email is also going to be relevant if you're concerned about duplicate contacts. And I apologize if you've heard me say this before, but I always like to remind all of our users that kvCORE can detect duplicates, but it is based solely on email address. So for example, if I had a contact in my database, I always use the example Bob. If there's any Bobs out there, I'm sorry, I always steal your name. Not very original with these pretend names I come up with here. We'll say that Bob's email address was bob@gmail.com. Probably pretty unlikely had to have gotten in there and stolen that email address pretty early on, but we'll pretend that's his email address for here. Now, if he's already in my CRM and I go to import a file of contacts and Bob just also happens to be in this new file of contacts I have, if he has the same email address that's already existing in my kvCORE Smart CRM, what'll happen when I go to import this is it's just going to flag that he's a duplicate contact and it's not going to import him a second time. So just something to note about those email addresses. Can be very helpful if you're worried about duplicate contacts. I will mention if you have multiple files, maybe multiple lead sources of files that you're bringing into kvCORE, there's some duplicates, but you also know that maybe these different lead sources don't have the exact same information. I see it quite commonly if you're used to maybe only adding notes about your leads in maybe your past CRM, but maybe your phone has the best phone number for that client or lead. If they have different information in these files, it's going to be worthwhile to merge them into one before bringing them into kvCORE. All right. Now, I know someone asked about multiple email and phone number fields. So at this point, I want to mention that this file, if I were to try to import it myself, wouldn't work quite right. I'd want to adjust these headers to what kvCORE could read. And to get a better idea of what kvCORE can read, we should probably look at our kvCORE import template. Now, I've included links in here on our support articles for prepping your list. I've included a link to our USA version of the import template. If you are working in Canada, please note there's a Canadian version of that template, a couple different fields in there. And then, of course, we've got our importing and exporting contacts guide. I also like to make a lot of our users aware that you can find a lot of this information through the lead engine in kvCORE. If you head on over to bulk lead import, we usually try to make sure that there's multiple ways to grab the support articles, grab whatever information you need, because not everybody is going to, first instinct is, oh, where was that guide that I got from this trainer in this webinar I attended one time? A lot of you are in the moment in kvCORE and you're thinking to yourself, where was that template? How can I find that again? So I do like to point out here, we've got our support article for rep and contacts, we've got a link to our template here. We've also got a link right here to that guide for important contacts. So multiple ways to access this information if you need to find it again. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up our template real quick. And a quick explanation of the template, because when this loads up, you're going to see multiple columns at the bottom here. Very first page just says welcome. And it mentions that, hey, you're going to have to make your own copy of this. Whether you're using Excel or Google Sheets or whatever your spreadsheet software is, you can go to File and you can either make a copy or you can always just download this. Just to let you know, downloading as an XLS will give you all the tabs at the bottom, and I'll explain what these tabs explain. If you download it as a CSV, you're downloading just the sheet, whatever sheet you're clicked on at the moment. So if you're on that welcome page, downloading this as a CSV won't help you very much. All right, so looking at the tabs at the bottom, very first one, commonly used fields, has some test leads in here, the commonly used fields of our template, as the name implies, and gives a little explanation, some tips and tricks about it. All fields is just a totally blank spreadsheet with just how we categorize the different headers. So this is where if I were trying to import my own contacts, where I would double check what fields can be imported into kvCORE. So for example, we can bring in, someone asked about phone numbers. Let me go ahead and make myself a copy of this so that way I can play around with it during our webinar here. Let that load up real quick. So someone asked about how many email addresses, how many phone numbers you can bring in for your contacts. And that's a common question. That's a great question. Now, I'm going to click on that all fields template again. Let it load on up. And you'll notice here we have email, second email, and we actually also have some spouse information. There's a spouse email field. I'll just go ahead and I'll drag it over for today's purposes. Let's line them all up. So you can bring in 3 different email fields in kvCORE. If you have more emails than that, I recommend adding them in as a note. So let's add a note column here. And this is where I would add in my, say, 4th email address if I had it. Now, keep in mind, that's just going to be a note, but it will help you keep track of it. Now, I do want to mention when you send out any sort of email message to kvCORE, to any of your contacts or leads, it's only being sent to whatever you have listed as the primary email address, and you cannot add more than one to the same field, just to let you know. Every once in a while, I'll get someone who does, bob@gmail.com, comma, and then adds a second one in there. It won't work quite like that. So make sure you're just adding one email address per column field. Okay. Now, the second email and the spouse email, if I add those in there, it will save that data. I'll show you where you can find it. So let's head over to my CRM and kvCORE real quick. And let's open up testing Mick Testerson. He is my test lead of the month. And I'll point out in his profile details, that's where I'm going to see if he had a second second email. That's what we're talking about here, second email, and any spouse information in that spouse email. So it gets stored here, but do be aware if you're sending an email, it's only sending it to whatever their primary email address was. And the primary email address is showing right up here. All right, for cell phone or phone number, we've got cell phone 1, cell phone 2, work phone, home phone, and spouse phone. So let me drag over the spouse phone number real quick. So they're all paired together. There we go. So we've got 5 phone fields here. Same idea. If you're sending out a text message or calling someone through kvCORE, it's only going to utilize the main cell phone number. It does store these other numbers for you, but keep in mind that when you're directly calling a lead or contact, just calls that main one. Now, for spouse information, because that question previously from Charles did also tie in spouse information, what to do if we've got different contact information for each. Well, a couple different ways that you could do this. If Bob here was, maybe him and his wife were receiving real estate information from me, I could enter Bob in here as, we'll say Bob and Sarah Smith. We'll call him Smith there. So Bob and Sarah Smith, I could enter them this way, but keep in mind when I send out an email, when I send out a text message, it's just going to go over to whoever's primary information is there. So if it's Bob's information, he is the one getting the messages, Sarah is not. If both spouses want to be messaged separately, I would probably add Sarah as her own contact here. So Bob Smith, Sarah Smith, give a different email and cell phone number. And to help tie the two together so you can remember that they're a pair and pull both up at the same time if you need to, I recommend including a hashtag and give them the same hashtag. So I might give them hashtag the Smiths. And that way, hashtags are a searchable tag that you create. You can label hashtags with whatever phrasing you'd like. There's just no spaces in my hashtags. As you can see, I made that all one word. If the no spaces drives you nuts, use an underscore. And what that does is if I had this as a hashtag in my database, I could go to my CRM, I could search by hashtag the Smiths, which it's not entered in right now, so this isn't going to pull up any results at the moment. But if I had them both in here, I could search by that, it would pull up both. And also it's really easy to see their hashtags underneath their names. So if I pull up one contact and I see hashtag the Smiths, or another common one is they might say spouse Smith. Might be another popular hashtag as well. If I see that, it's a little reminder to me, oh, their spouse is in here too. I should loop them in as well. So little pro tip for that. Hope that helped to thoroughly answer your question. And then yes, so primary email and spouse email won't both get the mass email. That is correct. Unless you're adding them in as a separate contacts like we did here, that would help make sure that, both get whatever email I'm sending to them. All right. So a couple little pro tips there. So with our import template, a couple other fields I really want to point out when it comes to prepping your list. We've already actually talked about one of them, that's hashtags. And as I've just indicated, it's going to be much easier to sort your contacts in your CRM if they have some labels. And this is just kind of one pro tip here. We have a whole YouTube video on hashtags. I think probably gives some more ideas there. The spouse hashtag is definitely a useful one. But really, if you're looking for ideas, other commonly used hashtags might be first-time homeowner or for sale by owner. If they're part of any sort of program, a discount, a credit repair, if there's a certain feature they're looking for in a home, maybe you want to tag them by their upcoming timeline. Are they looking to buy in 2023? Or are they looking to sell in the next 6 months? Feel free to add whatever tags are helpful to you. We can come up with lots of suggestions, but at the end of the day, if you don't remember your hashtags, they're not going to help you in your CRM. So make sure you're really thinking about what's relevant to you and your business. I know we've got a lot of people joined with us here today. I know some of you might be interested in commercials. Some of you might work with a lot of investors. Investors might be a good hashtag. Some of you Might work specifically with families or land. So think about the hashtags that are going to be that you're going to want to search by the most in your database, and make, plan accordingly. So hashtags you can really get creative with. But you might also notice in the CRM, we've got a couple other labels here as well. We have what's called their status. We have their deal types, so how you can help pinpoint if they're a buyer, a seller, a renter, another agent, or vendor. If you want to add in any title reps, lenders, people to use for home staging or repair. And then additionally, sometimes it's helpful as well. I know a lot of agents that like to have a source as well. Where is the source of where this lead came from? So these might be fields that you want to also incorporate into your spreadsheet before you either send it to our team or import it yourself. Now, those are kind of the basic things that I would look out for if you're importing yourself. Or sorry, sending to our team, I should say. If you're importing it yourself, you're going to want to take it a few steps further. So let's look back at that blank iCloud export. If you'll notice here, there's a lot of columns that aren't included in my kvCORE template. For example, the kvCORE import template doesn't have a column for display name. So I might want to, delete that if that's not an information I'm bringing in. Same thing with nickname. I've got a choice here. If nicknames are really important, maybe I'd bring that in as a note. So I would just change what the header said there. It would say note instead. I'm going to reverse that just in case anyone's still referencing this spreadsheet. And then as you can see, there is 3 email address columns, but it says email address 2, email 3 address. These are definitely different from the fields that we see in kvCORE, which are email, second email, and spouse email. So if you are importing this yourself, make sure you're checking our template here, because you're going to want to change what those fields say to match our import template. The fields that you export from iCloud won't be exactly the same. They call it business phone rather than work phone. They call it mobile phone rather than cell phone 1. And you got to be really specific if you're doing that import yourself. Now, if you're sending it over to our team, they'll make sure to change that other stuff for you. If there's a field that can't be imported in, they will remove it. Now, again, it's a good idea to check your own file here. If nickname was really important to me, I might change that to say note, or somehow let our lead configuration team know, hey, I want that included as a note. Don't delete that field. Because if it doesn't have an obvious matching place in kvCORE, we can bring that information as a note. But if it doesn't have a field and it doesn't obviously see that it should be a note, which there is, you can see there is a notes field in here, we might not bring it in. So there are fields for birthday. We definitely want to bring in, we have a field for home anniversary, not marriage anniversary. So that would also be a note. Additionally, we bring in, for the addresses, we'll bring in the address, the street address, the city, the state, the postal code. We don't typically need their, country or country code. So those are things that would be removed as well. Web pages, again, we could bring in as notes. If you've already categorized them, that's something that maybe you might want to bring over as a hashtag. So just to give you an idea of kind of what information will come over, and decide for yourself how much, editing you might want to do yourself as opposed to just sending it over to our team. I just saw mentioned in the Q&A. Oh, you have a miscellaneous kvCORE question when we're done? Okay, yeah, absolutely. Feel free to pop it in at any time. But essentially from here, let's double check our guide, make sure we're covering all our bases. So we talked a bit about prepping your list. We talked about labeling with status, hashtag, deal type, source. We talked about adding in full name, email, cell phone. Additionally, I highly recommend, while you're in there, might be worthwhile to remove any junk contacts. I will warn you, a common thing that happens when you export contacts from your phone is every once in a while it'll add extra contacts in here. I forget what it looks like. It's usually like a little hashtag symbol, and it might be something like inbox. And it might, kind of create a contact that's really not a contact. It's the number to your phone inbox. So sometimes it can bring over some weird information too. So good idea just to browse through these. If anything just looks like junk in your file, you might as well remove that column there. No need to bring in something that's just going to add more, junk to your CRM. Start with a fresh slate. Now, just quickly to kind of follow up with that concept of importing yourself or sending it over to our team. Little reminder, lead engine, headed over to bulk lead import, manage your settings. And again, you can do it yourself, but you're going to want to really format that file, because when you go to get started, those fields won't automatically match unless they're either properly labeled or you match them yourself, which means, if I don't have a field that says cell phone 1, maybe all my cell phone numbers are in a mobile phone column and I'm trying to import myself. Unless we match that up, it's not going to go to the correct place in kvCORE. So that's why that's important. But if you're sending it over to our team, I'll make sure to change those fields for you. And you can just fill out the submission form. I'm going to let you know that submission form. I have walked through it in a previous video, so I'm not going to do it here today just because we're a little short on time. But it will ask you who the lead should be assigned to, who they should be owned by. So assignment is who's working the lead. Ownership is who actually has permission to delete that lead or take it out of kvCORE. So if you're bringing in your own contacts, rest assured, no one else can take that out of kvCORE. Those are yours. And then additionally, in that submission form, you're going to let us know, hey, did you label them with status, deal type, hashtag, or did you want to choose one? And then additionally asks if you want the automation to run as soon as they're imported. So do you want them to receive search alerts or smart campaigns as soon as they're imported into kvCORE? And if you're not quite familiar with search alerts or smart campaigns, I believe last week my fellow trainer Christina taught a great success meetup on Thursday about powering up your automations. That might be a good one to watch if you're a little fuzzy on those ones. And then additionally, last thing I'll say about this, if you need one-on-one help with importing contacts, feel free to book a one-on-one Zoom screen share with our import specialists. I have included this in my guide, but you can also find the link here. And I think they might even have availability as soon as today. Looks like with the summer hours, I think a lot of agents are on vacation right now. It seems like they have pretty open availability. So they have time tomorrow. If anyone needs help with an import, you can book a one-on-one Zoom screen share. It's about 30 minutes long. You're doing what I'm doing here. You can share your screen, show them your file, get their expert advice. Oh yeah, where is that at? Just a little reminder, lead engine, upper corner, bulk lead import, or you'll also find bulk lead import if you scroll on down. And then right here under the let us handle it option, it says click here to schedule a time to speak with a lead configuration specialist. Keep in mind, they can only answer questions about importing your contacts. They are not trainers. So please make sure you're keeping your questions to import related questions. Yeah. Absolutely. I agree. And it's totally free. So no excuse not to use that if you need help bringing in your contacts. We don't want this to be a barrier. We don't want this to keep you from using your system. We want to make it as easy as we possibly can. All right. With that, let's double check our Q&A. Andrew, I think, asked us another question here. So let's see. If an agent gets kvCORE from their brokerage and enters contacts into kvCORE and the agent leaves to go to a different company, does the broker the agent is leaving have access to the contacts, or the agent contacts the agents only? I really like that you asked this question. I don't know if this was your unrelated question or if you have another one, but if you have more, feel free. Any questions about imports or anything, even if it's something else kvCORE related, feel free to pop those in the Q&A or the chat. So to answer Andrew, it's the only one. Okay. Well, so to answer your question, Andrew, no, they will not have access. They will not be able to take your contacts should you leave. Here's how it works. So every time you add a contact to kvCORE, let me go head over to my smart CRM here. You will have Each lead, you'll notice on the right-hand side, and I will mention for some accounts, I don't see these columns. Most accounts, you can go to your CRM and you can toggle on agent and owned by, which is about 2/3 of the way down. And that'll let you know who owns the lead and who it's just assigned to, who's working it. And we can see I own all of these leads. So if I were to leave kvCORE and I wanted to take my contacts with me, I can go to more actions. I can export the contacts, and it's going to email me a copy, a file of my contacts here. Now, it's only going to bring me contacts which are owned by me. If I scroll through here a couple pages, I probably have some contacts. Here we go. We've got one that's owned by the team. And I'll make this a little larger in case it's hard for anyone to see. I lied. I can't make it that large. Doesn't want to show me. So we can see here, let me close that back up, owned by, if it's a tiny bit tall, I'm going to tell you right now, it says it's owned by the training team. So I'm part of a larger team in this demo account that I'm showcasing here. So when I export contacts, it's not going to give me training team leads. The team provided that lead for me to work, but if I'm leaving that team or if I'm leaving that brokerage, you might also have some leads that are maybe given to you by company, or it might say, might say company or team here, different occasions. But if I don't own that lead, I don't get to take that one with me. And same thing for your brokerages as well. I definitely do recommend, if you're leaving a brokerage, to probably export your contacts. And if you're sure you're not going to be using kvCORE, you could delete them as well. Delete your personal contacts out there. But yes, they can't take that with them. Keep in mind, you won't be able to take company leads either. So hope that helps to clarify. All right, and let's see. Haley said, can I import leads from OpCity, Realtor.com through the bulk import as well? Absolutely. Any lead source that you can export contacts from, you can bulk import into kvCORE. And, for most of those, I will admit, I don't know if I've done Realtor.com, I believe is pretty straightforward how to export contacts from Realtor.com. So you can usually find, there's definitely one for, okay, there we go, to download or export your contacts. So this would probably be a guide that you would look at. And I know they're going through some changes with the OpCity Realtor.com. So this might be an older article. You might see a different one if you Google, how to export contacts from OpCity. But usually all you have to do is export it. And it's usually pretty simple from CRMs and lead sources, because you don't have to go through the conversion process that we talked about with iCloud contacts, where it gives you a V card. Usually just whatever they send to you is already in CSV format. So again, then you just have to think about, do I want to prep this? Do I want to label those contacts before I send it on over to the team? So absolutely something you could do with those contacts and leads. And then additionally, Haley, I don't know if you're still paying for leads from OpCity, but I would definitely recommend this is kind of a two-part process if it's a current lead source. So if you're currently generating leads from a third-party lead source, I would export all the past contacts, use this bulk import process to bring the old ones in. But then if you're still paying for it and you're generating new leads, you can also connect that to kvCORE. So any new leads that you generate sync into your kvCORE CRM automatically as well. So also from the lead engine in kvCORE, you've got lead Dropbox here on the right. And I will let you know for a fact, I know that OpCity will use this email key here. So you go and you copy that email key, go log into your OpCity, and somewhere in your settings is a place where you can pop in that email code and just have those new leads you generate filtered directly into your CRM. All right, and let's see as well, with the time remaining, got another question about, can you talk about, oh yeah, absolutely, I hope that helped. Let's see, can you talk about the Core Open House? Should I use a phone or tablet? I've never used it, but I have a couple open houses coming up. Yes, absolutely. So a couple resources. Let's see. Let's double check if we have a YouTube video on the open house app, because I feel like that was a topic that was discussed more recently. And I will admit, I get a lot of users that sometimes ask about the apps. It's a little trickier to teach a training on the apps because you really got to think about that ahead of time. I'd probably have to jump into Zoom using my phone to kind of share the experience with you guys, but I think we have. Let me double check our YouTube channel. I think we have a video about the open house app. I think there was one done recently. And it doesn't look like it's wanting to show me. I'll try that again there. But in the meantime, so the open house app, you can do it on a smartphone. It would work. It would work smartphone or tablet, whatever is more convenient. I definitely think a tablet gives them a little bit more space. Definitely, if you have anyone that might have trouble seeing something on a small cell phone, if you have maybe elderly or someone with poor vision, it's always nice to, if you have it, can put it on a tablet, put it on a tablet, but it works great on either. And the open house app is really going to capture, let's see, leveraging open houses with kvCORE. I thought we had a newer one. I might recommend this one. It's not going to be only about the open house app, but I think that might be a good one. We also have some open house strategies and scripts here. I'm definitely going to put a request on our teams, letting them know that we could use another video about the open house app, because I'm not seeing too much about it, but I will share out this broker's open house one. This is actually taught by, I believe, our training director, Kelly. She is fantastic and I highly recommend that. So I'll pop this YouTube video into the chat for you guys. But that open house app, if you haven't downloaded it already, you can head over to your dashboard in kvCORE and you can go click in the upper right-hand corner, this download mobile apps button. Gives you a little introduction to both apps. And again, you can text yourself a link if you want it on your phone. Or you could log into kvCORE on your tablet and you could just copy this link to your clipboard if that's easier to get it onto your tablet. And once it's on your tablet, you can have that out at your open house. It's really nice because unlike a sign-up sheet of paper that someone could potentially take with them, or could be, you get something spilled on it and then you lose all your leads, or someone writes in with poor handwriting and you go home and you try to read it later and you're thinking to yourself, I can't see what they put here for their contact information. Rather than having those issues, you have it on a tablet. So they're filling out their information, and that information does directly sync to your kvCORE Smart CRM. Now, it's okay if you don't have Wi-Fi at the open house. It's just going to store that data until you are in the presence of Wi-Fi, and then it'll back it up to your CRM and kvCORE. And then just something to note about those contacts that you add through the open house app. Once they're added to kvCORE, they do automatically get set up on search alert emails, which for anyone who's less familiar with search alert emails, recurring emails with listings based on your MLS and their home search criteria. In this case, listings similar to the open house that they just checked out. And then additionally as well, little bonus, I always like to point out in our smart campaigns, we do have a smart campaign meant to follow up with open house guests. If you don't already have it in your campaign library, you can find it from our kvCORE library. So I went to marketing. No, I'm doing this a little fast, so I'll back up a step. Marketing, smart campaigns, and then kvCORE library. If I type in open in the search bar, or feel free to flip through the pages of campaigns, there's a lot of good ones in here. But this open house smart campaign, if I go and add it to my library, if I just add it and then I turn it on, which I added a copy, which may have been a mistake because I might have several copies of this campaign in my library. So let's go look for it real quick. Oh, yep. Looks like I've got a couple copies here. All I need is one to be turned on, and then it can start sending follow-up messaging to those leads as well. Very first action, it sends them a little text message thanking them for attending the open house and follows up for a couple days from there. So it really tries to get them to engage with you. And this requires very minimal effort on your part. It will schedule a couple calls for you. So we'll see if you're checking your daily calls and tasks, you might see these show up there. But other than that, it really sends the messaging for you, sends emails and text messages and checks in with them. So great kind of follow up. And of course, if you're grabbing your own copy, feel free to edit any of these. If you want to take out the calls, you could do that too. So just a little bit about the app. And yes, if the app works without Wi-Fi or cellular data, yes, absolutely. If you don't have Wi-Fi at your open house, that's a-okay. It just stores that information. And then again, once you're in the presence of Wi-Fi, that's when it's going to back up to your CRM. So yeah, definitely recommend checking it out. We'll see if we can add a video in here. I do think that brokers, the one that I shared out, the 505 brokers open and open house tips and tricks, that one's going to be a great video for you for more advice in preparation for your open house, but definitely download the app. All right. Any other questions before we wrap it up here, folks? Thank you so much, Haley, and thank you so much, Charles, for your questions in the chat. And anyone else, if I missed anyone else that asked questions too, definitely appreciate that. I'll give it just a beat here, or you know what? I'll put back on some background music for a minute or two, just to give you guys a chance. If anyone has questions, pop it in the Q&A or chat. If this is all that you had time for today, if you don't have any further questions, I'm just going to share out in the chat again, one last time, this agenda or this guide, in case anyone missed it and they want to reference it later. And of course, I'll hang up for a minute or two if there's extra questions. If not, we'll wrap it up when the music ends. Oh, and let's see, this is using a squeeze page. Oh, are you checking out video? Oh, sorry, you're checking out the YouTube video. Did she mention using a squeeze page? How to promote it on Facebook using a squeeze page? Okay, yeah, she might reference some other open house strategies. It might probably not only about the open house app. I'll see if we have a better video. Maybe we'll share it out in a future one. If not, that sounds like that's something that could be a great topic for a future success meetup. But definitely there's more strategies than, just using the open house app. Oh, sorry. Had a question about, you had another question. All right, this is using a squeeze pad to promote it. How to promote it using a Facebook business page. Are you asking about promoting your open house on a Facebook business page? I think that's what you were getting at here. Let me close a couple of these tabs here. So we do have some videos as well about squeeze pages and landing pages. Squeeze pages, really quick and easy to build. You'll find them in the lead engine here. And you can go and you can choose your website domain. And for something like an open house, you'll probably choose, single property. You'll type in your listing address. And then you're definitely going to want to, of course, type in, if you're posting it to your Facebook business page, type in source something like Facebook business or Facebook business, open house squeeze, something to help remind you that when you capture leads, this is where they came from, that it was from the squeeze page you created, and probably assign them a hashtag as well, just so you have that extra filter when they enter your CRM. Now, something to note about squeeze pages, like your website, they're going to have a couple clicks on that page or on your website before it prompts them to register. The default is 2. If you're promoting a single property, rather than, you can also create squeeze pages to promote multiple properties. You can, almost like a search alert, you can choose kind of the search criteria. With a multi-property, if they're looking at multiple properties, 2 is fine to leave as is, and you could leave it for the single property as well. But I definitely recommend, if you're creating a squeeze page for a single property, to change this to maybe just one property view before it requires them to register, because there's always the chance if they're only interested in that one listing and that's what you send them to on your website, and they say, oh, well, I looked at the listing, that's all I wanted, they click out of your site, it's not going to capture them. So I definitely recommend, with a single property, maybe change this to one click, one view before it's prompting them to register. And then you can generate your link. For a Facebook page, you're definitely going to want to use your direct link to post that out online. Don't use the short link. It will be a big, long, ugly link, but little pro tip there, with that squeeze page link, once you load it onto Facebook and you see the photo image pop up, you can actually remove the link, type in your call to action. So no one actually sees the link when you're posting it to Facebook. It just helps load up that photo properly and the link to your website. And one more thing as well, if you're just promoting a new listing, I definitely recommend our playbooks, the Promote a New Listing playbook. I think we do have a YouTube video about this one as well. And this one will actually create, so I don't have a listing here, but we'll pretend this is my listing. You can find your listing here through the Promote a Listing playbook. And this playbook actually will pre-create squeeze pages and landing pages for you. So you don't even have to build them. It can do it for you. Give you a little taste of what that landing page looks like. This would be great to put on a Facebook page to promote your open house. Granted, it does say just listed, but to get the idea, so you could post this and then mention in the kind of call to action as you're posting it, say, hey, open house this weekend or whatever day that's happening, and share that out. So little couple pro tips to hopefully throw your way in time for that open house. I wish you lots of success. With that, I think we got to wrap it up here. I apologize. I got another webinar to run to after this, but I want to thank you guys so much for your time, your attention, the excellent questions in the chat, and I hope to see you guys at a future success meetup soon. Take care, everyone. Thank you.